And good afternoon, and welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix. With me, my amazing co-host, and today, very special guest,
Stephen Frederick is in the house.
Stephen Frederick, who is also known
As Stephen the Medium.
around the world as the famous Stephen the Medium, and who's also known around the world as my amazing husband.
Yes, sir.
So, how are you, Stephen?
Well, I'm just fabulous. Yes, I just am. Or taking a word from years ago, I'm just marvelous.
You are marvelous.
Yes.
That's from the old movies. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, that's from when we listened to Lucy's podcast.
That's true.
Everything
is
is marvelous. Marvelous.
Everything is marvelous, and I feel I'm marvelous too. But Stephen, listen. We had the last 2 weeks off. We were very busy entertaining. A shout out to our two Canadian friends, Priscilla and Phyllis.
Yes.
They better be listening to this show. And they came to see Stephen, to actually go to Stephen's first book signing at Barnes & Noble in Wareham, Massachusetts. And you're going to do a tour of many Barnes & Nobles from across the country. So stay tuned. He's coming to a Barnes & Noble near you. But and then we have family for the 4th of July. So needless to say, we've been exhausted. Entertaining is exhausting.
But we did a lot of fun things.
We did.
Right? We did a lot of fun things.
So, anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, well, starting with Phyllis and Priscilla, it was actually the first time that we got to meet them in person, and it was just a fantastic couple of days with them. They loved being on the Cape and had never been here, so we were able to host them in P-Town, and they loved P-Town so much that the next day they went back by themselves. And then, they came to the book signing, which was just so humbling for me, and I appreciated it so much because, they're on vacation and they're spending the 2 hours in a Barnes & Noble, but I love the fact that they did that. And then we speed up another week, and, my cousin/sister's here with my niece, Morgan. Holly and Morgan are here. Then Tristan and his wife Maria come. So it was all fantastic. We brought them to the water fires and went to dinner, and we had a great time.
It was amazing. But let's talk about, well, there's a few things that we did that were really extraordinary. We went on a sailboat in Provincetown, and that was amazing, Stephen.
Yes.
I mean, I've never done that out of Provincetown, and it was so good.
And let me just interject for a second, because we're on the boat. It was like a 2-hour sailboat, and the sailboat doesn't go out that far, but it was a beautiful ride. And Elix is talking to the captain, or I don't know if he was the captain, the guy that
he was the captain, yes.
And Elix was just talking about what he sees, because he's out there daily, and he was just saying that whales and a lot of the mammals don't come that close into shore, and because we weren't that far out. So I had Elix, Phyllis, and Priscilla at the same time. All four of us just used our energy and manifested that we wanted to see something spectacular. And maybe, what was it, like 30 minutes later, Elix, a pod of dolphins just swam by us.
And it was, I think it was like, what, at least 3 dozen dolphins?
It was incredible. It was so wild. It was really wild. Just the power of manifestation.
I loved it. And then let's talk a little bit about the water fires in Providence. That was a spectacular experience. I mean, we've been to the water fires. So if you're not from New England, Providence, I think it's the only state in the country that does. They call it the water fires, right?
Yes.
And they lit this canal. And they have vendors, and they have live music, and it's a spectacle, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful, and I loved it. I loved, um, experiencing the water fires for the first time, almost like newly, because I mean, we've been there together before, but I think this was the first time that we actually experienced them, the opening of the water fires. It's like a ceremony, right? And
It is. Coming from somebody who, that's my home city, right? Providence is where I grew up. So to see what the city was like without the water fires, and Providence is just such a great city because it has a canal running right through the center of Providence, downtown Providence. So that's how they do the water fires. But yeah, Elix, I don't think we've ever seen the actually open ceremony, but that was with the music and the people like sort of doing these dances on the boat and going by and lighting up all the they're really like they're little miniature bonfires sitting on the water, sitting on the canal. That's really how you describe it.
Yes, yes. So after that, we just needed a vacation for a few weeks before we have our next guest coming. I believe in August.
Yes.
So, but that was really awesome. But Stephen, talk about your experience, your book signing. It's a big deal. So tell people what that was like for you, and and when are you doing that again?
Well, listen, for anybody who has never written a book or thought about writing a book, it's doable. So if you back me up a couple of years ago, I certainly more than a couple of years ago, but before I even knew I was a medium. And even after when I found out I was a medium, that's just, it's not something was on my horizon. I just thought writing a book would be overwhelming. I have no experience with it. So, getting that done and it came out, it launched December 8th of 2023. So that was huge. But, and my goal was always to do a book signing and getting into Barnes & Noble because it's the last really remaining national huge chain. But in the back of my head was, will I be able to ever do that? So getting to do that and, meeting the author. There was an author before me from 12 to 2, and then I was 2 to 4. So when I came in, I got to chat with her, and, she knew a little bit about what I was doing in my book, and so we talked about that and talked about her book. She was very, very sweet, and she leaves and they set the table up, and I got this poster board, and Elix got an easel for me, so we had that behind me or on the side of me, and sitting there was surreal. It just was surreal with people coming up some people I know. I just texted Billy, who I used to work with at juvenile court, shocked me by stepping, into Barnes & Noble to support me. It meant so much to me. And Phyllis, and as I mentioned, the Canadians were with us. Of course, Elix, you were there. And people that I didn't know. Some people that follow me that I didn't know, that I never met in person. Some people that just walked by and see the title, The Suicide Gift, and come over just to say, what does that mean? Like, because those two words don't go together. So the conversations were amazing. And then after, it was for 2 hours, and after a little bit over an hour, we went into this little alcove spot in the book store, and I got to do readings for people. It was amazing.
It was amazing. And I think for me, what was really unique was getting people to see the title of your book. And, and it's a title, The Suicide Gift, that gives people pause. But I think I know, actually, based on that experience, it's necessary, and people coming to you because they've experienced suicide in their lives, whether family, husband, kid, or whatever, and coming to you because the title got their attention, and some of them stay for the reading, and so it was very moving, and it really got me to understand that your book definitely has a purpose for a whole lot of people out there.
I mean, I certainly hope so, especially like you said, Elix, for anybody who maybe hasn't experienced suicide or someone taking their life
but they know somebody.
Right. I was going to say, directly, but they do
Mhm.
know, most of us know indirectly somebody who's close to us, a friend's dad, friend's brother, or sister, whatever that may be. So that was something that I love putting in the book, and then, but I love the offset of the gift in talking about how after I processed everything and went through a lot of therapy and really got to know the subject of this show, who I was, and that's and only then is when my gifts started appearing, and I found out I was a medium. So I hopefully it's a motivator for people. It gives hope for people. Whatever their gifts are that they may have not been in touch with yet because of life and because of beliefs and all of that kind of things that push the gifts down. That there's definitely hope that just doing a little work will release your gifts.
Yeah, and it may not be like you said suicide. It may be some other traumatic experience that may have hidden that gift. But what your book does is it really helps people relate to the story, to your stories, and ask themselves, or really reconnect. Like say, wow, I too have experienced something similar. So I too have the access and the ability to uncover or discover whatever that gift is for me.
Well,
And
Elix, it's not. I'm so glad you said that because it's not that you have to experience something like a suicide. It can be
Mhm.
your partner, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend just leaving
Yeah,
you. It could be,
yes,
when and I use this story a lot. It could be, you're a 10-year-old girl, a 10-year-old boy that like schoolmates go by and call you fat or call you ugly or whatever the case may be, that is so traumatic for you that it
hmm
sits there. And but what the problem is, it's like having like these boulders on your box that holds all your gifts. Until you can remove those boulders, you can't open the lid to see what your gifts are. That's what this is all about.
and that is something that I think all of us should experience the opportunity to open up the boxes and to rediscover
Yes.
that gift that we all all have. So wonderful job. I'm super. I mean, I know I've said this many times, Steven, but I'm so proud, so proud. And you've inspired me to make sure that I get going on my own book
I love
and
it.
get it done. So with that said, by the way, I do want to do a shout out to Sandra Lugo, who is listening. She is a high school mate that follows both you and I, and Denise. These are people who are on the online, uh, whatever. I don't know what that's
Hi,
called.
Sandra, and hi, Denise.
Yes. But anyways, today, so how appropriate this conversation talking about your book and discovering your gift, because today we really are gonna be talking about what I would call the most profound question of our human existence. Why am I here? And Stephen the Medium has a very interesting perspective, has a lot of very interesting things to share with you. So, if this is a question that calls to you and should be calling to all of us, why am I here? I'm inviting you to stay tuned. We're going to take a small commercial break. When we come back, we are going to talk to Stephen the Medium about the most profound question in human experience. Why am I here? We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix. With me, my amazing co-host, guest star, and husband. Who are you?
I am Steven the Medium. That's who I am.
That's who you are. And today we are taking on an incredible question. Why am I here? A thought-provoking self-inquiry. So why am I here? I am sure that at some point in life, you, like everyone else, have pondered this question. Understanding our purpose can be both enlightening and transformative. And today we are going to have a chat with someone, perhaps one of the most intelligent and insightful people I know, about exploring the reasons behind our existence, the significance of our actions, and the impact that those actions can have in the world. Now, let's share with the one and only Steven, the medium, who I'm sure will have perspective that can be both philosophical, spiritual, and at the same time provide us with a practical approach that will help us all uncover our purpose and the answer to this question, why am I here? So, Mr. Steven, the medium, why is that an important question for all of us to be asking ourselves?
Well, I will tell you that I think I differ a little bit with what you said, because I don't think most of us at some point ask, why am I here? I don't think so. I think that's the problem, is that people don't say, why am I here? And I think if you bring this to like a simpler term or a simpler example, it would be like if you left the house and you drove to the supermarket because you have family, you're doing the weekly stop at the market to stock up, and when you walk into the supermarket, your brain just goes blank and you have nothing's there. You can't connect, and you don't know why you're there. So you turn around, get back into your car, and go home, and you have no food. And when you look at it that way, how can you live like that, right? How your kids, your husband or wife, whoever's going to the market, will look at you. Where's breakfast? Where's dinner? Or if your spouse wants to cook, honey, I can't cook. What happened? There's no food in here, and that just goes to show you how. If that would happen to us on a daily basis, even if you pick 3 times a week periodically on a day, and you went to a place with that intention of doing whatever, and that is erased from your mind, and you don't know why you're there, just imagine how that's going to affect your life. So if you use that example to the bigger picture, and you don't ask, why am I here, and you don't know, imagine on the big level how you're affected. I hope that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, I know you're speaking metaphorically, but as I'm listening to you use that metaphor about going to the market, it does make me realize that, yes, I do agree with you that most of us just live lives just in a routine, right? We wake up, we go to sleep, we do whatever we do. But I don't think very few ask themselves that question, why am I here? So like you said, many of us are living life with no food.
Exactly, Elix. Mm-hmm. And I think the great thing about starting that question, why am I here? As soon as you finish that sentence, the question, and say here, the authentic part of you pops up. It has to, because the only way you can answer that question is with your authentic soul, like your that essence. That's not your personality. It's not what we see when we look at each other. That's our personalities. That's the shell, right? Because we will lose that shell when we die, and our soul will move on, and a new shell will take over, whether it's the day after or 100 years after when we come back. But that shell is gone. So it has to be. It can only be answered by your soul and by that authentic part of you. And you're very, very lucky if you get there and you think about it. And like anything else, Helix, when someone even maybe hears this show and listens to it, you can say, "Why am I here?" But if you just sort of keep that with you for a minute or 2 minutes, and then you let it go, what happens to a lot of us, and probably what would happen to a lot of individuals, because life is there, then it just sort of goes by the wayside. You have to really focus and want to know, why am I here?
So why? Yeah, I'm sorry, Stephen. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But why is that such a difficult question to either ask ourselves or even answer? Because it is. Because I think oftentimes, even myself, having done a lot of transformative work for over 20 years, sometimes it's easy to say, I don't know. So why is that such a difficult question to ask and answer?
Well, I think we don't. When I started this conversation and said I don't think a lot of people ask that question, I think it's not individuals' faults. I think it's because it's society, it's life. It's when we're little and then we go to school, and what is taught, and it's pretty much from a lot of us, if not most of us, when we go to school, it's you have to go to school, you have to then get a job, or you have to go to college and you have to get a really great job, and you have to support yourself and family. It's not the way the society is set up is not driven for that question, why am I here? I mean, I know I went through private school from the get-go, from grammar school all the way through high school. Then I went to college. Then I went to law school. Not one professor or teacher ever said, students, kids, let me ask this question, why am I here? That's never happened, because that spiritual piece is missing. I think we've gotten better, but it's still missing in that sort of realm. So to answer your question, I don't even think that's the reason why we don't even get there, is because we're driven away from it right out of the gate. We're driven away from it. And I think there's a multitude of other reasons why. I think a lot of people may think, if I ask that question, am I going to be disappointed, or am I going to be disappointing somebody else, or somebody in spirit, or just that disappointment piece? And it's so crucial to get there, because it is, as I mentioned, it's not only attached to being your authentic self, but it really, I think you said this, Helix, at the beginning of the show, it is so attached to your purpose and to your passion and your journey and where you're going, and to get to those gifts. It's so important. But I think, it's Helix, it's like, a perfect example, I think, is if you're driving to work, and you drive to work, you've been in this job for 10 years, and there's going to be many days that you're either on the phone in the car, or you're thinking about things, and then you realize, I'm here already? I don't even remember going by the section, whatever part of the street or strip or wherever that you go by every single day. I don't even remember any of that. It's sort of the same thing, is that we just get in these automatic ways, and it's very mechanical. So unless someone stops you, pulls in front of you, and says, hold on, I know you're heading to work, I know you're heading to pick the kids up, I know you're heading up to go to the supermarket, I know you're heading home because you're tired, but I just want you to think about this question, why am I here? Why are you here? It just doesn't sit with us. It's not in our realm.
Yeah, and I also think that many of us use it as a way to sort of get ourselves off the hook, to avoid being responsible, right? Because if you're asking yourself that question, then you have to confront what the answer might be. If you don't ask yourself the question, then you can just go through the motions of living without being present. And for many people, that is what, perhaps because that's what they've been, that's what they've learned, that's what they've been taught, that's what life looks like for them from early childhood. They just want to stay comfortable with whatever that comfort is. But oftentimes, when if you ask yourself that question, you have to then deal with the reality of what that answer might be. And that answer might expose that, well, wait a minute, I'm not living a fulfilled life. I'm not doing what I love. I am just going through the motions. And unless I do something drastic, I'm going to die just going through the motions. Does that make sense?
Of course it does. And coming from that's really why I wrote the book. Coming from myself after my dad took his life when I was 8 years old, for all those years going forward, I hated myself. I hated people around me. I hated my life. And that's another thing. I would never, even if someone even proposed that question, I would just throw it away because of everything that was going on in my life. And that's what happens to people too. People have a lot of stuff going on that sometimes, good or bad, and that sort of just, sort of detours that question, and you never get to it.
Yeah. Well, what we do have to get to, Stephen, is a commercial break. So we're going to take a small commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to continue to explore this very profound question: why am I here? And we have the one and only Stephen the Medium to help us answer that. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co-host and today's guest star,
Stephen Frederick is here.
Stephen Frederick, Stephen the Medium is in the house, and today we are having a conversation about exploring the reasons behind our existence, the significance of our actions, and the impact that we have on the world through the question, why am I here? And who better to help us answer this question or ask ourselves this question than the one and only Stephen the Medium? And Stephen, when you and I talked about this subject, as we often do, we think about, what would we talk about? What do you want to talk about? And you bring a lot of insight and a lot of thought-provoking ideas to the show. one of the things when you first said it to me, I said, "Oh, it's like talking about purpose," and you said, "No, it's deeper than that." So why is asking ourselves the question, "Why am I here?" deeper than purpose?
Because the only way you can connect the why am I here with purpose is you've done the work. You've answered the question, why am I here? You can't jump from why am I here to and have a purpose without doing that work. And that's really, really important. When you said to me, when I like you just said, when I said about the title that would be a good thing to speak about, you said, oh, it's about purpose, and you gave a reference to what you did. And that's when I came back and said, but you couldn't be there unless you answered the question, and clearly, Elix, you answered the question. So it's what I love about this question of why am I here is that, as I already mentioned, it automatically, there's two steps. And the first step is the authenticity. As soon as you ask that question, your authentic soul pops up, and whether you feel like I'm a disappointment, whether you feel like I hate myself, I've done nothing, I'm just living my life and I'm going through the mechanics of it, and I'm going through my step. I don't care whatever you're feeling. I'm just here to tell anyone who's listening to this that you have meaning. You're here and you are placed here for a reason. You have meaning. And if you feel that way, it's because you haven't gone through this process above and beyond. And I don't want to minimize or be insensitive for people that have just a lot of things that just hit them hard. And I know that's a lot of people that don't really even feel like, or may listen to this and say, oh, for God's sakes, this is philosophical question. I'm not answering that. What is that going to do for me? How's that going to pay bills? How's this going to do this? And I just hope by just listening to this, you may just think, well, what if I sort of contemplate this question? What if I go down this road and it is a huge impact on me? Just the what if. And when I said there's two parts to this, step one is the authenticity. It already brings you to, all right, so I know now I have meaning. Like, I'm here for a reason. I want to find out what the reason is. And I think step two that goes with step one is the effort, right? I mean, you can't understand your purpose and your passions without some kind of effort in your life. So in other words, you can't jump into your car and drive to a store without some kind of effort, right? You're not going to get there. And it's sort of the same thing. You have to really back up the question if you want to answer the question with effort. You have to start thinking about doing the work and figuring it out. And I will tell you one thing, that maybe somebody else that would be talking about why am I here would have a different perspective. But for me, as 20 years as a juvenile court attorney and seeing so many things, and more so becoming a medium, I would also ask you to think about, if you're going to answer this question, before you start the question and you set your intention, bring your loved ones in that are in spirit. Even if it's you feel like you're connected to your guides, if you've got grandparents, great-grandparents that you've never met, or you have met them and they're in spirit, bring them in, because they're watching every second and every moment, and they haven't missed any milestones. They will help. They will just be a very, very big help in sort of the quest to answer this question.
That's really wonderful, Stephen. I love that you bring that spirituality part into the conversation. Going back to, something you said, because this is a conversation that I encounter with many of my clients every single day. People want to have a coach because they're seeking to live, a fulfilled life, right? They're seeking to step into doing what they have been called to do, but it's often met with the resistance of, but I have to pay the bills, right? And yes, you have to pay the bills, but at the same time, life is a moment by moment choice. And and I'll give you an example, Steve, because I don't want to sound like I like I'm being judgmental. But I'll give you an experience. I know a young person who is who came to me because he doesn't feel he's doing what he wants to do. So I asked him, okay, so what are you going to do about it? And how are you going to get into motion? And I did ask him, so what is it that you want? Like, what are you seeking? I didn't ask the question. I'm now going to include the question, why are you here, right? I'm going to actually add that question to my clients, but I didn't ask. I asked a similar question, I guess. And he says, well, I love to, pursue my personal business. He's in fitness, but I also work for my family, and that keeps me pays the bills, and it's really nice and comfortable. So what I'm left with is, okay, well, that's a choice. It's nothing wrong with choosing that, by the way. But you can't complain that you're not living the life that you want, and then choosing that as a choice. Now, living the life that you want may become or may come with harder choices, and perhaps not having all the luxuries that you have today. But that's a choice. Again, I'm not just saying that one it's better than the other. I'm saying that the only person that can answer that question is you. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Of course.
So how would you then help someone, Stephen, that comes to you and says, look, I think I know why I'm here, but I find myself paralyzed. I don't know what to do. How do I step into that? What would you say to that?
Well, I would start with just sort of repeating. If someone came and said exactly what you just said, I would start with repeating that statement and just said, let's look at the words you just said, specifically paralyzed. Paralyzed does not equate to going through the process of answering the question of why am I here. There's no room for paralyzed when you know your purpose and your passion. So if you're using that word, then you don't fully understand why you're here. They just don't equate with each other. And you can't, when you answer that question of why am I here, you're in such a, it's almost like the scale of justice. You're in such an amazing spot, and you can't have that I feel paralyzed, because what that's going to do is it's going to offset the balance, and it's going to pull the side that is living your life, living your passion down, which means you're not going to have the full answers of why am I here. So I would start with that, and because you and I have talked many times about how powerful words are and how powerful our thoughts are. That is part of it. But if someone did, it would be almost like a comparison when we talked about people that, like you just said, I have to pay the bills. It's almost like if you were cutting the grass and you're using a manual lawnmower, and someone is trying to tell you, stop for a second and just go around this corner. And they look at you, I can't. Don't you understand? I got to get this lawn cut. Then I have another lawn, and I have another lawn because I get paid. And if I don't do this, I'm not going to have clients, and I'm not going to have money. But just for a second, I can't. Don't you understand? I don't. This is what I have to do. I need money. I need this. And you sort of like back up, and you see right around the corner is a electric lawnmower that in the half the time, all these jobs could be done in a better way, maintenance-wise and look-wise and cosmetic-wise. But that's what happens to us. We get stuck. I don't have time. Don't you understand? I have to work. I have to do this. I need money. And we get so into that routine that we just can't take that one step to sort of pull away. And I think answering what you asked me too, Felix, with someone coming with that question, I would start with, I call it the where's here game. That's a great way to start when you're looking at that question, why am I here? You start with where's here game. Well, okay, so where's here? Why am I here? Let's focus on the here word. You start with the immediate. Where's here? Everyone who's listening now, for you, Elix, for Mark, who produces the show, for me, for anybody. Right now, for me, I'm sitting in the chair, right? I'm looking at my desktop. I'm sitting in the chair talking into the microphone. And then you sort of expand a little bit further. Okay, but this is the room in our house. And then you just look at the bigger picture and you keep doing that. Okay, this is the house that's on our land, and this land we have neighbors, and this is what city, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's a pretty cool way to start, because whether you know it or not, it's just opening up your mind. It's taking you out of just the five senses, and it's really pulling you into like that multi-sensory place where you need to be to answer this question. And I think it's a great game.
Yeah, that's a wonderful practice. I'm super lucky that I get to live with you, because you get to give me these reminders every day. But I do have another reminder now. I have to take a break, a commercial break. So let's take a small break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with this amazing, thought-provoking self-inquiry. Why am I here? We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co-host and awesome guest star,
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium is in the house, and today we are having a thought-provoking conversation, self-inquiry about why am I here. So, Stephen, I want to ask you this question. I think I know the answer, but I want to hear from you. Do you believe that we have a predetermined purpose, or is that something that can be created or invented by ourselves?
I love that question, because I think the second half of that just is propelled off the first half of it, because I absolutely believe that we have a predetermined life. From doing what I do as a medium, always feel from spirit that when we're coming here, we sign contracts to come here. As soon as we're born, we don't remember the contract, so we don't know. But the reason why we're coming here is because we need to learn something, right? This is the school, so we're here. So it is predetermined. But I think the great thing is that when you find out why I'm here, then the second part of that comes that you can invent even more parts to why you're here, which I love. I think it's perfect.
So I had no idea that that's what you were going to say. I thought you were going to say, no, everyone gets to invent it and create it. But I love the concept of we all sign a contract. And, it's up to us to live up to that contract in this human life. So what are some things, Stephen, that our listeners can take away? Some easy steps that our listeners can take away in asking themselves, why am I here, in really creating the opening to discover purpose for each and one of them.
So before I answer that, let me just also clarify something I just said. I do believe that we are predetermined, that we sign contracts, but just keep in mind too that when we get here, we have free will. So it would be like someone who's born that is a masterful piano player that just decides, I'm not playing piano. So even though they've got this amazing skill that's probably 1 in a million, if they don't play, that's their free will. So I just want to make sure people understand that. If you were if I was to answer a question of, all right, Stephen, I want to look at this question. I want to look at why am I here? How do I start? So I already talked about the authenticity and the effort. That's just by asking the question. But there's really like 3 things I think are very important. So one, I always say, think about your sort of dreamlike role models. And I say that in not a comparison way, not an ego way. It's nothing to do with that. It really is just about whether it's a celebrity, whether it's your mother, father, best friend. If there is something, it is an exercise, but if there is somebody that sort of inspires you, or you think, God, how did they get there? I love that they got there. I love that they're, every time I see them, that they're clearly living their passion. It's not a job for them what they're doing. It's their passion and it's their purpose. Think of that kind of selection of people, even if it's someone you don't know. It could be a celebrity that you just think, maybe you love a celebrity that at some point lived in a car and they were able to sort of answer that question, why am I here, and get to a place that now they're celebrities or so. I'm just using that as an example, and then just start thinking about their personalities, what they're like, if you know where they came from, just do an inventory of that. I think it's really important to understand that. It's a good way to think about it. I think 2 is sort of what I say is leverage previous meaningful moments. Just think about your own life and your past experiences as sort of guiding sources for the future life you want to attain or you want to live. So just write down maybe the 5 most meaningful moments you've had in the last year or the last couple of years or the last 5 years. It's a great mind exercise, because when you look at those meaningful moments, then when you write them down, even if you select, as I mentioned, just to do 5, then start looking, why were they meaningful? Like, what was going on with you? What was it? Just the emotions internally? Was it because of the environment around you? Was it because of people around you? Was it because you had your dog with you or your cat with you? Just sort of dissect those meaningful moments, and that is all part of bringing you towards, why am I here? And I think that the third one would be sort of identifying your version of a purposeful life, because as Elix and I both talked about, answering this question is just about purpose, and it really is things like couple of days ago, I have a routine. I get up, I feed the dog, I bring them out, and then I have a routine with the birds and the ducks and the watering the flowers. And it was amazing that a couple of days ago, something was going on. I was here and I never got to it. And it just gave me a feeling of not meaningful, that I do that because I love seeing the flowers thrive and I love feeding the birds and the ducks. I had an emptiness in me because I never got there, and it was almost like I started feeling like bad Steven, and that is not the place to be in to answer the question of why am I here. So I think you have to just really look at those current meaningful moments or minutes, and now in sort of tomorrow and one of my most favorite expressions is don't die with the music still in you, meaning that all the stuff that you've got, you want to get to that purpose and that meaningful part of life and your passion or so. And lastly, I'll tell you to close this up is that I think when you ask about why am I here, I think it is you will get to a place when you do this exercise and you are really thriving in it and you want to know and you're getting to your passion and purpose. I guarantee you when you get there, you're going to look back at that statement. You're going to go back to when you started. Why am I here? And you're not going to see the I. It's just going to disappear, because when you get to that purpose and passion, you realize, or you're reminded, that in the big picture, there's no I. We are all one. So everything that you do in your life is collectively helping the big picture. So it's incredible transformation when you get there, and then you sort of then start looking at, instead of why am I here, you start thinking of you are, which is a huge, beautiful statement. You are, because it states pretty much like it's pulling into the bigger picture, and it also is just, you found your purpose then. You are this. It's not why am I here anymore. It's I know why I'm here. I know who I am. I know I have meaning. I know I've been put here for a particular reason. You lifted those boulders. You opened the top of the lid. You know your gifts. And it's a whole different world.
Fabulous. And the last thing that I would add to that, and you and I have had this conversation, is when you identify what that version of purpose for you is, write it down. And write it down as a declaration, because I personally believe that personal declarations are really meaningful. They act as anchor statements, for us. And Stephen, an anchor statement that I've been living by for many years is I am committed to fulfilling the highest, truest expression of myself as a human being. So that calls me into action every day, every single day. So whatever that is for you, write it down. And write it down as I am statement, because there's a power in the I am statement.
I love that. I love that. As before I went to law school and became an attorney, my bachelor's was accounting, and I was in auditing. And one thing that you learn in auditing is two words: document and distribute. And I love that, because what you just said, Elix, I'm glad you brought that up, because you are documenting it, and then you're distributing it to the energy around you. You're distributing it to your loved ones in spirit. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and there's no conditions to that statement. The moment you write it, the moment you declare it, it's so. So, yes. I can't say I am committed to being or living the highest, full expression of myself as a human being only when life is good to me, only when things are good, or for this person but not that person. Right. That doesn't work. You have to fully commit to it regardless, no matter what. And, and again, when you make it a declaration, it becomes a declaration. It becomes the what so, because you say so. So
I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, Stephen, this conversation, honestly, we engage in these conversations, and before we know it, we are at the top of the hour. And I'm like, oh, my God, where has time gone by? And so it's time has flown, but this conversation was really insightful, and for me, listening, I've learned a whole lot just listening to this conversation today.
I'm glad, and I certainly hope anybody who's listening is reminded of their meaning and that they think about this question.
I hope so. And Stephen, how can people find you? How can they connect with you? If they want to come see you at Barnes and Nobles, when are you going to be there next? Where are you going to be there next? And tell them all about you.
Well, as I always say, I just say, open your window, yo, Stephen the Medium, and I'll pop in. I'll be there. So I'm going to be there a week from Saturday, July 20th, from 2 to 4 at the Barnes & Noble in Rentham. And I have some events. I have an event next Tuesday in my office, but that's sold out, I know. There is an event in Yarmouth at Dunn & Sons, which is August 4th. That's a really amazing event because it's max of 16. Everybody gets red, and you get some wine, which is beautiful.
But
and then
there's
August
limited
10th,
tickets to that, right? Because there's some sold.
There's some, yeah. I don't know how many left, but you can go on my website, stephenthemedium.com. And then August 10th, I also have an event in Marlborough, Mass. that you can find out. It's a Saturday afternoon. But if you go to stephenthemedium.com, you can find all that info out.
Awesome. And you can find me at Coach Elex anywhere on social media. Or if you want to work out with me, you can find me at my workout family, CrossFit 1620 in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Shout out to our friends Lisa and Matt. So that's it for today, Stephen. Thank you for being so generous with your time and with your knowledge and sharing all of that power with all of us. We all appreciate it. And thank you, of course, to our producer, Mark Clark, and our GM, Mr. Jim Jones, for always being there, supporting us. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.